So now let's try to understand the last part of Paternoster prayer from Buddhist point of view. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In my mind, these words are one of the most difficult to command. And the reason is, first of all, again in my mind, the mistake of understanding of the word temptation, as people generally think about tests or ordeals, not about temptation. But we have to understand that it is about very temptation, and not, of course, about tests or ordeals. In different teachings, and also in Christianity, we talk about necessity of tests, necessity of ordeals. And as for temptation, we say not about tempt itself, but just specifically don't lead into temptation. And it is not the same. When we are tempted somehow, we can reject temptations because we understand that all these temptations are transient, impermanent, and there is no need to keep them. There is no need to evaluate them somehow, to give any value to this kind of temptations. And so that's why we easily reject temptations when we understand that these kind of values are transient and impermanent. On the other hand, as for tests and ordeals, we need tests and ordeals for our development. It is in Buddhism too, and in Christianity too. At the same time, in Christianity, we always say, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test, according to Jesus Christ himself. And we never doubt about God himself. We never doubt about Jesus Christ. And in Buddhism too, we never doubt about three highest treasures. So to put the Lord your God into the test is terrible because it means that we never have the real faith. We are far away from the real belief. But it is not the same for ourselves. For example, in Buddhism, in Vajrayana, tests are needed for our development. It is impossible to have any development without tests, without passing tests on every step. And tests help us to rid of all our defilements, of everything that disturb our development. So in Christianity, at the same time, it is also important to mention that in spite of your understanding about the importance of tests, you still don't want to have any test. It is very simple. You don't want to have, but you are ready to pass it. And even Son of the God, Jesus Christ himself, at Maundy Thursday, said, and going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. And what should be very important for us, something like a star showing the path. Words explained by Apostle Paul. He said, God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. And this is our chance. In the most complicated situations, even if we think that there is no way out in our life, in some stage of our life, we should always remember these words. And we will always find a way out. We will always find a possibility to overcome all the tests that we have. And what about Buddhism again? Passing the test. We don't only get rid of defilements, but we also check our motivation. And in this way, we perceive our motivation strongly, the very motivation for spiritual development. And so, passing the tests, overcoming temptations, we feel, we understand, we perceive anew that God in Christianity and three highest treasures in Buddhism will always help us. And in this way, our motivation, our faith, the way of our belief becomes much strong and strong enough to overcome all difficulties in our life and finally reach the very liberation. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. We have already mentioned that this very prayer should be understood not just as a plea, not just a prayer itself, but somehow as a vow. And so, now too, these words are not just a way to glorify the Lord, but somehow a conclusion, an upshot of the whole prayer. By these words, we again finally give up all our powers, our own will. We finally again get rid of all transient values and the whole earthly kingdom too. And at the same time, it is somehow a comforting promise for us that we will be able finally reach the heaven and get the very liberation. And also in Buddhism, we take the greatest example, the example of blessed awakened, and we say, village to village we shall roam, mount to mount, revering him, the fully awakened one, the unexcelled king of perfect dharma. And the last word, Amen. And it is a seal, the sign of the truth. And it is the same with our mantra, with Om. And when the bells of the church ring, we can hear the voice of Om. And I pray all living beings reach the liberation.